Alright, purely in SketchUp, I'm going to show you essentially how you do the same thing as Revit. Again, I'm talking about going in and out, coordinate systems and the like here, so I'm just going to kind of show you some of the commonalities in all these programs, and that is the leveling, and then the dissimilarities where it's when you're deciding whether or not to group things together. But this idea of anytime you have a repeating shape, and anytime you actually have a section, more or less, that might change. For instance, you might have to go from a 30-inch deep W shape to a 33-inch deep W shape. It's best to think of these things in terms of center lines or some reference line and then a cross section. So I'm going to go here, set up my camera in a parallel projection. I'm going to go to a top view. I'm going to make some layers here right away. I'm going to go ahead and make the grid layer. I'm going to go ahead and make the column layer. I'm going to go ahead and make the girder layer. I'm going to go ahead and make the beam layer. And I think those are all my layers. And then I'm also going to go here and show you something within style, which is going to be pretty useful as we start keeping track. And that is this idea of your settings is set in this program by styles. And in this case, I've got a general, but within here, we can actually set our colors to being, go right here, colors to be by material, but only if in fact we go to here by colors by layer. So now as we set this and save this, I'm going to update that, well, default engineering style. My guess is now that whatever layer I'm on, for instance on grid, things are going to come in brown. So if I go here and I'll draft my first line, and if you remember we've been doing a lot of this, I'm just going to go ahead and type it. I started it, I wanted it to be 100 feet, and my hope is that it is. And now I can turn off my axes here, and hopefully that I've got that looks like a brown line now. Now that's a grid line, so that's something I don't have to make a block of or a component of. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab, move, hit the control key here. I'm going to move that over with the control key. I want to move it over 30 feet. And I'm going to do it 4 times. And I'm going to then start to do things like this. Take things together, right click on the top, and I'm going to make a group. You don't always have to group, but this is, in this program, it's much more important to group early and often so that when you draw a line like from here to here, it does not break into pieces. That's a good and a bad thing. But right like there, I'm going to take that. Once again, I don't not need to make a block out of it or a component of it because I'm going to go 50 feet and then 2 times. I've got that done. I can actually make these into one group. I'm going to just go ahead and, so I've got different groups. We could make in components, right click, make a group, and then I'm going to take those 2 things, right click and make a group. Not necessarily necessary, but not bad. Alright, I now have something that I can kind of, let me assume that I'm going to go just basically have my girders rest on top. This time I'm going to make 10-foot columns, and here's how you want to go about doing that. However, you want to really think about making your columns first in terms of linear, more or less a reference line that you will sweep along, and then going back potentially and being able to change that component, if you would, by just changing one thing inside of it. So I'm going to go here right now and change my layer. Go to here to layers, and I'm going to set my layer on column right now. And I'm just going to draft up one. And I'm going straight up. I just get it in the right direction. I just have to say 10 feet. And now it actually is a column, and it is on the right layer. I'm going to go ahead and this time, however, instead of just copying it, I'm going to go ahead and go across the top of it, right click, go across the top of it, right click. I want to make it a component, so it's not quite doing it. Edit, make a component. I want to, so those axes make sense to me. I'm going to call it column. And I'll just give it, in this case, generic. Okay. This stuff here is kind of important later on, but we're going to leave it. The setting the component axis I just did, I'm going to create. Now I've got that column. I can go ahead once again, hit Control, that does the copy. I'm going to do this 30 feet 5 times. And once again, same thing. I'm going to grab all that across. I'm going to grab copy, hit the control key, 50 feet 2 times. And I'm going to grab each of these and make them into a group. All together. And you can of course do all this. That's the great thing about grouping. It doesn't grab. I can hit a control and take that out, right click. Guess I didn't grab each of those. Grab those. Try it again, holding the control key down. You'll see this of course is not unsimilar to what you do in Revit. What the difference in Revit will be that as you change the grid or change the level, these things will move along with them. So they're tied from one thing to the other. So in other words, the girder will be tied to the column. If the column moves, then the girder will stretch. And of course the column is tied to the grid. I'm going to right click, make that a group. Now I'm going to go to the next layer, window, layers. I'm going to make a girder. Same thing, these are all typically the same. So I'm going to go ahead and just assume my interior and exteriors for now are the same. I'm going to go from the top there to there. Right away, however, I want to immediately before going any farther, I want to define what might or might not be my coordinate system on the girder. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, right click. Interesting that it's not actually taking me immediately to make component, but make a component. I'm going to set my component axis. I'm going to call that my girder underscore edit undo. Once again, edit, make component, girder underscore generic. In other words, you don't have anything kind of set yet. We're going to create it. Now I can take this here and once again hit the control key there 4 times. I guess I don't need the 4th one, but I'm going to go ahead and erase that. I'm clicking, right click, erasing. I'm going to grab each of these. My hope is that they're on the girder layer. And I can once again now take and hit the control, the copy key, hit the control, come to there. I go to kind of find along here. I want to go 50 feet and then 2 times. I now want to take those and put them in a group. Eventually you'll see you might want to put those actually in a component. There's a lot of this stuff I haven't done components all the way through. I've just done it on the individuals. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this here. I could actually make that into a component if I wanted to. Right click, make a group. I now have in fact the girders. These are done, I'm kind of dual tasking. Some are done on, I'm both doing layers and I'm doing groups or blocks at the same time. Last one now, I'm going to go to window, layers, beam, right? Set that, that's set. Now when I go ahead and draft my line from here, I'm again assuming all these are the same beams. I'm going to go ahead and again right click. Before I move on, I'm going to take that, edit, make component, kind of keeping track a little bit of what axis I'm doing. That I'm going to call it generic underscore beam. This is right along with what Revit's doing. Once again, I'm going to take this now and I'm going to go ahead and take my control there. Those of you who had me on AutoCAD ages ago remember that phrase. Anytime you see a repeating shape, think block. It's even more important in this, it's think component. So I'm going to now grab that, hit my control key. I'm going to move over 6 feet, which is my beam spacing, and then I'm going to go ahead and I don't know, I'm not even going to count. That's 24, probably 24 times. It's more than I need, I think. I'm going to go out here. The last thing I'm going to do is make that into a group. Once again, I could be doing a component set. That might be a better idea. Groups and components, there's a little bit of difference, and I'm going to go ahead now and see if I can grab. If you think about it, what's great about this now with your layers is you can now turn everything else off. And I can then go ahead and take this and make it into a group. Okay, why we're making it into groups is later on we'll be able to move those groups up or down based on changes in what's below it. Top down, bottom up. If all of a sudden, you do need to keep track of these levels and elevations. In this case, you're doing it by using a group. In Revit, you'll be doing it by using levels. Thanks for listening. We'll see how this works in the next of 2 videos showing how Revit and Sketchup can be done to parallel each other.